The artist Banksy is in the middle of his month-long New York City residency, and he is basically doing his art on private and public property throughout New York. If you are unfamiliar with his art, it's usually politically motivated, and he uses a stencil technique. So there is an example of a piece of art that he did. I believe he did that in Tribeca, and of course it features the Twin Towers, and he used a flower to symbolize where the plane initially hit. And so the way he does his art is obviously, some people consider it graffiti, and there are laws against that. But in a lot of different places throughout Europe and the United States, officials have allowed his art to exist because it isn't just graffiti where you go there and you write your name or something. There's artistic value to it. However, Mayor Michael Bloomberg disagrees with that. He thinks that this is wrong, and he says the following: "I'll leave it up to our Department of Cultural Affairs, but look, graffiti does ruin people's property, and it's a sign of decay and loss of control." I think that last part of his quote spoke volumes. A loss of control. And that's exactly what Banksy is fighting for. He's very anti-establishment. He's an anti-capitalist. And as I said, a lot of his artwork is politically motivated.
No, you nailed it, Anna. That sprung out of it. Loss of control. Like, hey, wait a minute, we're in charge here, okay? Bloomberg, who's the mayor of New York, who made billions of dollars selling Bloomberg terminals to Wall Street, and who mauled Occupy Wall Street and cleared them out of Zuccotti Park, needs to be in control. Graffiti and this kind of art is populist. It's a loss. Now, look, the thing is, if he was less adamant about it and didn't tip his hand as to which direction he's going, I think there's a valid point to say, hey, listen, if it's my house, I don't want you doing graffiti on it. If it's a public space, well, there's a good argument to make, and Occupy might make the argument that we should have some sort of agreement before one of you decides to paint the wall with your art, right? Like, they would go like this, I feel. They'd be like, no, we have to be unanimous before you decide to do that. So I think I'm a little torn on graffiti, but I think here you've commissioned him, so like, he's right, it's a different department. Bloomberg didn't do it personally. But him being like bitter man about it, like, this Banksy guy. And what does he mean, Banksy, anyway? I like the Banks. Loss of control. Right? Yeah. I just made him a penguin. But
yeah.
So he lost me a little bit there. But it's an interesting conversation.
He didn't lose me at all. I'm 100% with him. 100%. Without a question. You can't paint. You can't do your graffiti on public property. You can't do it. You can't do it. And I like what Bloomberg said, because he's not even really going after him. He's like, I'll leave it up to the Department of Cultural Affairs. He's like, my hands are off. I don't like it. And you do need to be in control if you're the mayor. You got to run the city, and it does devalue property. And graffiti in New York, of course, has a long history of messing up the city.
To be fair, Banksy's art actually adds value to the property.
Okay, but then
he has artwork that is sold for $1.2 million.
Okay, so we got a law that's like, okay, Banksy's graffiti's okay.
No, I totally understand the argument, and I'm gonna first preface this by saying I understand that I'm wrong, okay? And I understand that the argument that it's graffiti is the right argument, and it's wrong. It's against the law. You can't go around defacing property, yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, the fact that it's political speech makes me say, all right, I don't really care. I think that this type of political speech, I know this is wrong, and John's already making his annoying faces to tell me to stop,
And we didn't agree to it.
But what I'm trying to say is, look, whenever it comes to political speech, people always want it to be super convenient, okay? Make sure you get the right permits, make sure that you don't inconvenience anyone, make sure you follow all the rules, and then maybe if you're lucky, you get to make your political point. And in this case, Banksy is saying, no, I don't want to do that. I am breaking the law, and he doesn't do it in an ugly way. He doesn't go around there destroying property. I think his artwork is beautiful, and it makes a good political point, so I'm in favor of it.
Okay, so here's my point. I think that it is obviously both art and graffiti. I like a lot of what he does. I think it looks really cool. I like the message behind it, and if he wanted to do it on my wall, I would let him. I don't own the building, but if I own the building, I would let him. But I get to make that decision. He doesn't get to make that decision. And yes, it's political speech, and you do have free speech in this country, but you don't have free speech the way a kindergartner thinks you do, where I get to do whatever I want. You still have to follow the laws.
I know that.
It's Banksy in this case, but if it was a Tea Party graffiti artist,
It's another angry white guy
no,
here.
I like it, and I like the message. but he doesn't get to decide in the same way that some Tea Party graffiti artist who wanted to put, Obama raping Uncle Sam or something on my wall. I don't have to keep that on my wall just because it's political.
So
I like it, but it has to be in the right context. Put it on a canvas or
I know,
something.
and there, it is really difficult to just paint over it if you dislike it or you disagree with it. And I get it; that's inconvenient for the person that had the Banksy art on their building. But I don't know. I
couldn't tell if you were
no,
being
no.
sarcastic there.
Yes. No, I'm gonna back Anna up here, and it's a temporal and contextual argument. Okay, back in the 1980s, when New York City was literally littered with graffiti, and there was some political points in there, so some art in there, but a lot of guys were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna put my name." Oh no, I'm gonna put my name, and it looked terrible. It was depressing. All the things that Bloomberg talks about, right? Now we're not in a situation where we're not run amok with graffiti. It's not a huge problem. And from time to time, somebody makes a political point, and sometimes it's not political. Of course, I know that. Right?
I don't know that the Twin Towers with the flower. Well, beautiful. I don't know that that's a terribly political point.
Right. But from time to time, somebody lashes out at being under the control of the establishment and says, I'm going to voice myself in a way that I know is, and you could frame it this way, civil disobedience, right? And I say within this context, in this time, I'm with Anna. That's kind of a breath of fresh air. Whereas in the 1980s, it wouldn't have been.
Okay, but
That's fine. I agree with that.
I mean, I agree with that. But the mayor, if the mayor condones it, then you're not rebelling against everything. Bloomberg is doing exactly what he should be doing. I've never supported him more on this. But Banksy doesn't want Bloomberg to go, yeah, go ahead, you're okay. Yeah, they should try and stop him, and he should try not to get stopped. That's his job.
Batman in the
But by the way, they
Right.
commissioned him. In this case, they commissioned him. The New York City did.
Well, that's different. If they commissioned him, then what's the point of us having this conversation?
No. I think that Bloomberg is just one, he's annoyed that that department commissioned him. Number two, it's unclear in the articles that I read about whether he's allowed to do it in certain places. There's certain places he's absolutely allowed to do it in because he got commissioned. And other places, that's where Bloomberg's like, well, that's really kind of public. I don't.
No, I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, if he's commissioned to do it and Bloomberg just doesn't like it, then he just seems angry.
Right, but I mean, to be fair, to your point, I think Bloomberg's generally saying hey, just because they commissioned this doesn't mean you should go do graffiti all over New York.
Right, which is what he's got to do, and he needs to say we're in control. One of a big reason why, like him or not, and he is a complicated guy. He's not just a bad mayor. He's a lot of things to disagree with.
Right.
He's also a very good mayor in a lot of ways, and and one of the ways he did by was restoring a sense of order to New York, which a significant number of New Yorkers, removing stop and frisk from the equation, are thrilled and grateful that the order was restored to New York.
Bloomberg's super complicated. I mean, for a while, I wanted Bloomberg to run for president, and I preferred him to the Democratic or Republican options. We're not in that time either.
Right, that time, that moment passed.